Hello and welcome. Tonight, once again, Governor Siminalayi Fubara blows hot over his face-up with state lawmakers, says that they are not members of the State Assembly as the lawmakers veto the governor on yet another bill. No plan to approve foreign military bases in any part of the country. Federal government reacts to speculations of a possible sighting of U.S. forces in Nigeria. Says that rumor is aimed at creating disaffection against the government. Former Vice President Atiku Abubakar alleges conflict of interest in the Lagos-Calabar Coastal Road Project contract award. Presidential aide Bayo Ononuga accuses Mr. Abubakar of distorting facts. And Hamas approves of ceasefire in Gaza. Gaza puts forward by Qatari and Egyptian mediators. Israel asks Palestinians to leave eastern Rafah ahead of limited military operations there.
And on business news tonight, the Securities and Exchange Commission calls for delisting of the Naira from peer-to-peer crypto trading platforms to mitigate potential manipulation risks.
On sports news tonight, West Ham manager David Moyes will leave by mutual consent when his contract expires at the end of the season, with former Wolves boss Julian Lopetegui set to replace him.
From Abuja, the nation's capital, at least 5 people reportedly killed after bandits attack Ambe community in Kaduna State. Police say one suspect has been arrested in connection with the incident.
We begin in Rivers State, where each day seems to bring with it a different twist in the political face-off between Governor Siminalayi Fubara and the State House of Assembly. But the governor, Fubara, is still talking tough, saying that the lawmakers can cease to act as legislators if he so decides. Governor Fubara stated this while addressing a delegation of political and traditional leaders from Bayelsa State who visited him to seek an end to the political crisis in the state and an improved relationship between both states.
These traditional and political leaders from Bayelsa State are here on a courtesy visit to Governor Siminalayi Fubara at the River State Government House in Port Harcourt. The delegation, led by a former governor of Bayelsa State and current Senator Seriake Dixon, includes notable figures such as the first military governor of Old River State and traditional ruler of Tuan Brass, Alfred Dete Spiff, as well as the chairman of the Bayelsa Council of Traditional Rulers, along with several other traditional rulers, former state and national assembly members, former commissioners, and other political leaders. The leader of the delegation says the visit is on 2 grounds: to call for an end to the political crisis in River State and seek an improved relationship between Bayelsa and River State that once existed as one state.
The creation of Bayelsa State out of Old River State was not and should not be made to see as if it's a severance of the relationship between our people. It is not a war of Jericho, of division, hatred, and acrimony between our people. But it's a move which, well utilized, will accelerate our development and national stake.
Acknowledging the concern of his neighbors, Governor Fubara explains how much restraint he's exercised since the crisis began in the state. He acknowledges the contributions of his predecessor and Minister of the FCT, Mr. Nyesom Wike, to his emergence as governor, but promises not to worship any man.
The young people, those group of men who claim that are assembly members, are not assembly members. They are not existing. I want it to be on record. I accepted that peace accord to give them a floating. That is the truth. There was nothing in that peace accord that is a constitutional issue. It's a political solution to a problem. I want you to see the sacrifice I've made in the cause of allowing peace to be in our state. I can say here with all amount of boldness, I've never called any policeman anywhere to go and harass anybody. I've never gone anywhere to do anything against anybody. But what happens to people that are supporting me? They are being harassed. They are being detained. There is no week that somebody doesn't come here with one letter of invitation for trump-up charges and all those things.
On the relationship between both states, Governor Fubara condemns the crisis that had existed before he became governor.
We were separated because of political purposes to expand development. But we need to be united so that the economy of these two states will grow. There is no need for us to have any arguments over assets. There's no need for us to have any disagreement over issues of who owns this or who doesn't own that. One way or the other, we're even interrelated. That is the truth.
It is expected that this visit and other efforts will help strengthen the bond of unity between the two states.
Meanwhile, just as Governor Fubara was blowing hot at the government house, the state lawmakers were also tackling him over the state's public procurement law. At the end of plenary today, the lawmakers vetoed the governor on the bill before them and passed it for third reading, making it the seventh time they would veto the governor on the state laws. The Speaker, Martin Amawele, accused the governor of financial irresponsibility and recklessness in the way he was spending money without appropriation. Our correspondent Charles Oporum reports.
It's another sitting of the Rivers State House of Assembly, and one of the items on the agenda for the day is the governor's handling of state financing, which the Speaker condemns.
For those that may not understand today, tomorrow they will understand the position that this House has taken on most of these matters. The Rivers State Public Procurement Amendment Bill, which members have just spoken about, which we passed and forwarded to His Excellency the Governor for his assent, which he has also chosen to withhold his assent, is one bill that seeks to secure taxpayers' money. This bill seeks to ensure that taxpayers' money are not spent arbitrarily. Distinguished colleagues, it is no longer news that the Governor of Rivers State, he has chosen not to appoint the chairman and members of the Bureau on Public Procurement. As we speak, there is no bureau in place. There is no DG known to law. The governor, at will, spends taxpayers' money without due process. And the whole world is watching. The whole world is watching how a sitting governor will be spending taxpayers' money without due process, awarding contracts without a budget, awarding contracts that were never even in the budget of last year, and doing so, and they are boasting that nothing will happen.
Without wasting time, the Deputy Speaker asks his colleagues to veto the governor on the State Public Procurement Amendment Bill.
Representation of the Rivers State Public Procurement Amendment Bill 2024. Mr. Speaker, one important thing that I've learned from you as Speaker of the 10th Assembly is that you are always following the law and procedure. Mr. Speaker, Parliament all over the world, when properly constituted, as we are rightly constituted this morning, everything they do is done according to law, procedure, and best practice. And that is what we are about to do this morning. The bill shall become law, and the assent of the governor shall not be required.
Of particular concern is the issue of Emowa local government, where the staff are yet to be paid their March salaries.
Our trip, in our meetings, we discovered that the Emowa local government staff have not been paid salary up to this moment. Our further findings reveal that there was an instruction to the civil servants in that place who are the signatories not to sign relevant documents to access funds.
And the case of Emowa is now more pronounced. like the chairman of the committee rightly pointed out, to this day, no staff of Emohua local government has been paid salary for the month of March, both political office holders and civil servants there. Why have they not been paid? Because an impostor who was directed by the governor sits there in the commission, contrary to the Rivers State Local Government Service Commission regulations.
Next, the Speaker signals the passage of the second reading of the Rivers State Public Procurement Amendment Bill 2024.
The Rivers State Public Procurement Amendment Bill 2024 is hereby passed for a second time in line with Section 100, subsection 5 of the 1999 Constitution as altered. The clerk will forward copies of this new law once Mr. Speaker appends his signature to relevant authorities.
This is the latest in the political saga involving Governor Siminalayi Fubara and the House of Assembly. It remains to be seen when the face-off will finally be resolved. Charles Oporum, Channels Television News.
Away from politics in Rivers State, let's head to Edo State now, where the Speaker of the House of Assembly, Blessing Abwebaku, has announced the suspension of 3 lawmakers over what he described as an impeachment plot to remove him and some principal officers of the House. The affected lawmakers are Donald Okogbe of the People's Democratic Party, the PDP, representing Akoko Edo 1, Bright Inyamu, also of the PDP, representing Oriomo South, and Ade Isibo of the All Progressives Congress, the APC, representing Asan Northeast. The Speaker accused the 3 lawmakers of being backed by external forces to cause chaos and destabilize the Assembly.
The following members were involved in this nefarious act are on the right down representing Oriomo Constituency, Honorable Donald representing Akoko Constituency 2, Honorable Adam representing Asan Northeast Constituency. By this mode, these 2 members are never suspended from this House of Assembly indefinitely.
The decision was, however, rejected by the 3 lawmakers who protested their suspension, maintaining that the action did not follow due process. Against the backdrop of the warning by some Nigerians against hosting of foreign military bases in the country, the federal government says there are no plans to this regard. While reacting to reports in the media alleging that Nigeria is a possible target of the relocation of the U.S. military base from Niger Republic, the Minister of Information and National Orientation, Mr. Mohammed Idris, has dismissed the claims. According to him, the story is the work of rumor mongers looking for avenues to cause disaffection between the government and the people.
I can tell you that the federal government of Nigeria has neither received any request to set up a military base or is even contemplating setting up one. I don't know where it's coming from. We think that this is not factual, this is misleading, and this is not patriotic. We feel that people should say what is right for our country. The federal government of Nigeria is not in any way contemplating or inviting any foreign national to set up a base. But of course, you know that we have collaboration and cooperation with foreign countries to fight insecurity in this country, and we'll continue to do that. But no such military base is in contemplation by the Nigerian government.
In part 2, after the break, former Vice President Atiku Abubakar tackles the federal government over the Lagos-Calabar Coastal Road Project contract award, alleges conflict of interest as Presidential aide Bayo Onanuga accuses Mr. Abubakar of distorting facts. Please stay with us. Welcome back. If you've just joined us, you're watching the news at 10, coming to you live on Channels Television from Lagos. A reminder of our main stories. Once again, Governor Siminalayi Fubara blows heart over his face-off with Rivers State lawmakers, says they are not members of the State Assembly, as the lawmakers veto the governor on yet another bill. No plan to approve foreign military bases in any part of the country. Federal government reacts to speculations over possible sighting of U.S. forces in Nigeria, says rumor is aimed at creating disaffection against the government. Former Vice President Atiku Abubakar alleges conflict of interest in the Lagos-Calabar Coastal Road Project contract award. Presidential aide Bayo Onanuga accuses Mr. Abubakar of distorting facts. And Hamas approves ceasefire deal for Gaza put forward by Qatari and Egyptian mediators as Israel asks Palestinians to leave Eastern Rafah ahead of a limited military operation there. The last may not have been heard regarding the controversy surrounding the construction of the coastal road from Lagos to Calabar. Well, former Vice President and presidential candidate of the People's Democratic Party in the 2023 election, who has been a strong critic of the project, says the fact that President Bola Tinubu's son and his surrogates are on the board of companies owned by Gilbert Shaguri clearly constitutes a conflict of interest. Gilbert Shaguri is said to be the owner of High-Tech, which was awarded the contract of the Lagos-Calabar Coastal Highway project. In a statement by his media advisor, Paul Ibe, the former vice president urged President Tinubu to focus more on attracting real investors than adopting propaganda as a state policy. The former vice president noted that the president's son, Sheyi, is a director on the board of CDK Integrated Industries, which is a subsidiary of the Shaguri Group, which manufactures ceramic tiles and sanitary towels. Citing a report by Paris-based Africa Intelligence News Agency, where it was revealed by the Corporate Affairs Commission that Mr. Sheyi is officially a business associate of Shaguri, the former vice president said it was not surprising that the Shaguri Group had become the biggest beneficiary of the Tinubu lodges. The former vice president says that it has now become obvious, even to the discerning, that the Lagos-Calabar Coastal Highway is being done in a hurry purely because of the business relationship between the president and Shaguri. Meanwhile, the special advisor to the president on information and strategy, Mr. Bayo Onanuga, has been reacting to the former vice president's claim, saying that Mr. Abubakar is fast developing a reputation for distorting and manipulating facts to discredit the current administration. According to him, President Bola Tinubu's son, Sheyi, joined the board of directors of CDK back in 2018, which is more than 6 years ago, and not because his father is a friend of the Shaguris. Mr. Onanuga says that when Mr. Atiku Abubakar was vice president of Nigeria between 1999 to 2007, he maintained his business links with Intels that won major port concession deals. He also alleged that as the chairman of the National Council on Privatization, the former vice president approved the sale of 145 state-owned enterprises to his known friends and associates. The president's media aide says that Mr. Abubakar is waging a campaign of calumny against the economic fortunes and prosperity of Nigeria by trying to scuttle a project that will bring prosperity to the 9 coastal states and the nation in general. And in other stories, the Nigerian National Petroleum Corporation Limited says that it is preparing to commission some gas processing plants in the country, which could hopefully drop the price of gas. The NNPCL Executive Vice President, Gas Power and New Energy, Mr. Olaleko Ogunleye, said this after an inspection tour of some of the gas plants located in Imo, Delta, and Akwa Ibom states. Our correspondent Larry Lasisi reports.
The delegation of the Nigerian National Petroleum Corporation Limited arriving at the Honor gas processing plants in Asa North of Imo State. They are received by their partners on the project, the management of Seplat Petroleum Development Company, who then take them on a tour of the facility which is yet to be commissioned.
Basically, it's a no-flares gas plant. Because we compress any gas that comes out of the lower pressure stages, which otherwise would have been flared, we compress it to put it back into the gas stream, which will be going into the pipelines, into the domestic grid to power the electricity.
There's more gas in Nigeria than there is oil. We've got to use this gas, and we've got to use it domestically within Nigeria, and we've got to get it into electricity. And what's that going to do? It's going to lower the cost of power for the whole population. And that's what we've got to do. And when we do that, it's then going to transform all industries, whether it be healthcare or it will be education, employment for people.
The delegation also visited OML 13, located in Eastern Obolo local government area, Akwa Ibom State. The facility has a capacity of 60,000 barrels of crude oil and 100 million standard cubic feet of gas per day. The journey continues to the ANL gas plant located in Kwale, Delta State. A team is shown around the new plant, GPP-2, which joins the existing plant, GPP-1.
The advantage of the second gas plant will further help reduce our import bill on LPG. It'll take our total market share from about 12% to a little over 20%, thereby substituting all our import needs by domestic production done by Nigerians in Nigeria.
The NNPC says these projects are just the beginning.
This gas processing plant 2 will not just deliver 200 million scoff of gas. It's being configured to go above that and will actually deliver 220. And it's important to note that as we speak, ahead of the presidential commissioning, the plant is actually delivering gas into the OB3. So this is important. This project and the earlier one we saw today will deliver incremental 25% of gas into the domestic market. This is gas to power. This is gas for industries. This is delivering opportunity to the people of Nigeria. It's more LPG. It's consistent with the aspiration of crashing the price of LPG.
For the NNPC, these projects signify that the petroleum sector in Nigeria is ready for partnership and investment. They're hopeful that in the coming months, these projects will help bring more production of gas into the Nigerian market, thereby bringing down the price for the public. From Kwale in Delta State, Lanre Lasisi for Channels Television News.
To the judiciary in Abuja, where a high court of the Federal Capital Territory has modified the bail conditions handed down to one Abayomi Oluwasesan, who was accused along with his wife of stealing the sum of $87 million from an online crypto platform, Africa Arbitrage. The judge granted the application of the counsel of the accused, who sought for varying of the bail conditions. The judge modified the bail conditions slightly to require that the two sureties owned properties in the FCT and not Maitama in particular, while the bail bond was dropped to 400 million naira. Meanwhile, the court has fixed May the 14th to commence speedy trial of the case, while the two accused persons were returned to Suleja Correctional Center pending when they perfect their bail conditions. Turn our attention to security, but we head over to our Abuja studios where Malpe Ogun Yusuf is standing by to give us more. Hello, Malpe, and Happy New Week.
Hello. Indeed. Good to see you too. Well, you're right on the money with that one, but it's some sad news here, as at least 5 people have been reported killed by bandits who attacked Ambe community in Sanga local government area of Kaduna State on Sunday night. Spokesperson of the Kaduna State Police Command, Mansir Hassan, who confirmed the incident to Channels Television, says one suspect has been arrested in connection with the attack. He also confirmed that police operatives from Sanga Divisional Police Station and troops of Operation Safe Haven, upon getting the distress call, rushed to the community and engaged the bandits in a gun duel during which one of the bandits was arrested, while the rest escaped into the forest with bullet wounds. Meanwhile, the member representing Jama'a Sanga Federal Constituency, Daniel Amos, explained in a statement that 6 people were killed in the attack, while 8 others sustained injuries and are receiving medical treatment at the hospital. Staying with security matters, the Ebonyi State Police Command has also confirmed the killing of a traditional ruler in Umuihe Autonomous Community in Ivo local government area of Ebonyi State. Police spokesperson in the state, DSP Joshua Ukando, told Channels Television that the yet-to-be-identified gunmen had invaded the community over the weekend and killed the first-class monarch. He said on getting a distress call of the attack, the police responded, but unfortunately the hoodlums had committed the act and that efforts are on to arrest the perpetrators of the act. Away from security now, project delivery remains at the core of governance, and leaders across all levels must begin to lay emphasis on how to enhance its monitoring and evaluation tools to achieve meaningful development. This is the viewpoint of the Director General of the West African Institute for Financial and Economic Management, Mr. Baba Musa, who is canvassing regular monitoring and evaluation in the West African region for project delivery. He was speaking at a meeting of the Institute in Abuja. Our correspondent Sarah Achimugo reports.
Participants from the West African region are attending this session organized by the West African Institute for Financial and Economic Management, taking place in the nation's capital, Abuja. The Institute's primary mandate is to develop skilled professionals in the fields of macroeconomic and financial management, as well as governance and institutional development among the staff of the central banks, core economic and planning ministries, as well as other relevant public and private sector institutions.
Poor management of project output and outcome can result in the objectives of the project not being realized. Monitoring and evaluation have in this regard as a continuous management function to assess if progress is made in achieving expected results, spot bottlenecks in the implementation, and highlight whether there are any unintended effects or risks.
The latest session organized by the Institute focuses on project management, monitoring and evaluation. Representatives of the Central Bank of Nigeria are lending their support towards this course, as well as others initiated by YFM.
Monitoring is a continuous process by which stakeholders obtain regular feedback on progress towards achieving the set milestones and results, often focusing more on process, activities, inputs, and outputs. It is a process that is not only concerned with the transformation of inputs into output, but can also take the form of physical and financial processes that can make project implementation effective.
West Africa continues to face tough times, particularly on decisions on how to strategize towards resource utilization. Hopefully, this session will help change this narrative going forward. Sarah Chimugu, Channels Television News.
Still ahead on the news at 10, the Securities and Exchange Commission calls for delisting of the Naira from P2P trading platforms to mitigate potential manipulation risks. That's on business news. Please join us again. Welcome back. Vice President Kashim Shettima will no longer represent President Bola Tinubu at the U.S.-Africa Business Summit scheduled to hold in Dallas, Texas. In a statement, the Senior Special Assistant to the President on Media and Communications, Office of the Vice President, Mr. Stanley Nkwocha, explains that Vice President Shettima was unable to make the trip following a technical fault with his aircraft, forcing him to make a detour. The statement adds that the Minister of Foreign Affairs, Ambassador Yusuf Tugur, will now represent the President at the event, while the Vice President will carry on with other national duties. The U.S.-Africa Business Summit, taking place at the K. Bailey Hutchinson Convention Center in Dallas, is expected to bring together political and business leaders from across Africa, the United States, and other nations. And that's all from our Abuja studios. It's back now to you, Anne.
Thank you, Malkwe. To other stories, the African Policy Research Institute is advocating increased financing for climate change projects in Nigeria to enable the country meet her 20% greenhouse emission reduction target by the year 2030. The institute maintains that Nigeria's 2 billion naira climate financing inflow in the last 2 years are grossly inadequate to effectively implement climate change program that will significantly address the country's climate needs. The call for increased funding was made at the Climate Financing Conference in Abuja.
Climate change experts from the African Policy Research Institute and development partners are at this conference in Abuja to brainstorm on climate financing and actionable pathways for Nigeria's low net emission growth. In November 2021, Nigeria signed the Climate Change Act, which seeks to achieve a low greenhouse gas emission by the year 2030. The federal government also says it will require over 17 billion naira annually to achieve the low greenhouse gas emission target. Participants at this conference are of the opinion that the current climate financing inflows in Nigeria are far too insignificant to drive the agenda.
In the last year, Nigeria received about $2 billion in climate financing, which is a very small fraction of what is needed, even in the energy sector alone. But increasing flows will not come from simply articulating our vision for climate action or making bold statements.
According to the African Development Bank, Nigeria needs an annual investment of about $20.5 billion in renewable energy to meet her low greenhouse gas emission target by the year 2030. However, this kind of financing may not come easy, as panelists at this conference analyze impediments to climate financing in Nigeria.
In order to mobilize, the adequate amount of climate financing into the country, then we have to have, adequate regulatory frameworks, so that would not just attract more climate finance, but also amplify the impact of this climate finance.
Being able to originate projects really well is important. I mean, we have quite a number of project pipelines. A lot of the time, investors look at these projects and they push them aside because they're not well thought of, they're not well designed, they're not bankable. So we do need to sit down and make sure we do our homework to be able to originate projects better.
The consensus here is that Nigeria will need increased local and international funding for the country to achieve her target of low greenhouse gas emission by 2030.
Here in Lagos, the Church of Nigeria Anglican Communion has held the third session of its 35th Synod at Our Saviour's Church in Tafawa Balewa Square in Lagos. The Diocesan Bishop of Lagos, Right Reverend Ifedola Okukwevi, encouraged the church not to relent in prayers, while the Governor of Lagos State, represented by the Secretary to the Government, Bimbola Salu Honde, re-echoed the need for prayers for the government to succeed.
The third session of the 35th Synod of the Lagos Diocese of the Anglican Communion gets underway as all guests arrive for the occasion. Present here, a governor of Lagos State, Mr. Babajide Sanwo-Olu, who is represented by the Secretary of the State Government, former Diocesan Bishop of Lagos, Archbishop Ephraim Ademo, and Catholic Archbishop of Lagos, His Grace Most Reverend Alfred Adewale Martins. The Synod provides an opportunity for bishops to account for their stewardship, and the Secretary to the Lagos State Government believes the theme for this year's event is just apt, especially in the face of the present economic hardship in the country.
This Holy Assembly pray more of your prayers for administration in Lagos State and the federal government of Nigeria, ably led by our beloved President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, GCFR, as we collectively strive to revamp our economy and set it on the path of sustainable growth and development in Jesus' name.
For the Diocesan Bishop of Lagos, Right Reverend Ifedola Okukwevi, the church has its work cut out as it needs to do more in its primary assignment of spreading the gospel.
The situation of our nation and other nations today begs for solution,
and answers as we are faced with diverse forms of challenges ranging from domestic violence to international wars, from personal poverty to national famine and economic downturn. For us to experience the change we desperately seek, making disciples of all nations is the only way to give hope to people on earth. The King of Kings.
As top echelon of the Anglican Communion deliberates on how to move the church forward, there's a lot to resolve here to continuously seek the face of God through prayers, as encapsulated in the theme of the third session, which is Preach the Word, Be Prepared in Season and Out of Season.
Just as recently announced by the Lagos State government, operatives of the Kick Against Indiscipline attached to the Ministry of Environment and Water Resources, alongside security operatives, today commenced the removal of shanties under the Adeniji Adele Bridge in Lagos Island. According to the Commissioner for Environment and Water Resources, Mr. Tokunbo Wahab, the exercise is part of the commitment of the Babajide Sanwo-Olu administration to reclaim all ungoverned spaces and that dot the Lagos landscape. It says that unsightly shanties, which are located in the heart of Lagos Island, represent a distorted image of what a city like Lagos should look like. Apart from the unsanitary conditions of the area, the Commissioner says that it also serves as a hiding place for criminals. In other stories from Lagos, the Ikeja Electricity Distribution Company has reduced the electricity tariff payable by its Band A customers to 206.8 per kilowatt hour from the 225 per kilowatt hour approved by the Nigerian Electricity Regulatory Commission. According to a notice by the company spokesperson, Mr. Olufadeke Omorodion, the downward tariff review takes effect from today, May the 6th, 2024. The decision to reduce the tariff may not be unconnected with the public outcry over the recent increase, which civil society organizations and labor unions have described as insensitive. Meanwhile, the tariffs for bands B, C, D, and E remain unchanged. In the world of business, Laddie Williams is standing by to give us more. Hello, Laddie.
Thanks, Anne. Well, in business news, the Securities and Exchange Commission is doubling down on its efforts to eliminate illegal trading activities in the virtual asset space. Acting Director General Dr. Emomotimi Agama reiterated the SEC's commitment during a virtual meeting with Nigeria's Blockchain Industry Coordinating Committee, emphasizing the importance of maintaining the integrity of the capital market and safeguarding investors' interests. Addressing concerns about market manipulation, Mr. Agama called for delisting of the Naira from P2P trading platforms to mitigate potential manipulation risks. He urged participants in the crypto space to identify and report bad actors, emphasizing the SEC's commitment to swiftly license compliant individuals and institutions. And as Nigeria thrives to diversify its economy from oil dependence, the U.S. Consul General to Nigeria, Mr. Will Stevens, believes Nigeria is heading there at a fast pace. He made the comment at Lagos Business School event with the theme Thriving in the Digital Age. Take a listen.
When you're talking about employment, when you're talking about diversification of your GDP, Nigeria is moving there and is moving there very, very quickly. And probably so quickly that you don't even realize it. Because whenever I tell visitors from Washington that statistic that ICT accounts for 3 times more than oil and gas, they just sort of, no, it doesn't. That's not true. Nigeria is an oil country. Well, it may be, but your technology companies, the work that you're doing on information and communications technology is light years ahead of where it was just 10 years ago, and is having a huge impact on the workforce and the global workforce. And I will tell you that Nigeria is doing quite well on digital infrastructure. You have some of the fastest internet in the continent, in Lagos, in Akwa Ibom now, that both Meta and Google have landed massive undersea cables.
The Debt Management Office has announced the opening of a subscription for the May FGN saving bonds available at 1,000 Naira per unit. Investors can subscribe to the 2-year savings bond, which will mature May 15, 2026, and carries an annual interest rate of 17.407%, while the 3-year savings bond with a maturity date of May 15, 2027 features an interest rate of 18.407% per annum. The interest rates currently offered by the DMO and FGN savings bonds mark the highest rates ever seen, signaling a direction towards a potential further rate hike as the country navigates economic shifts. And the domestic equities market opened the first day of the trading week in the red, profit-taking. Dominic Iwiwu has the details.
Hello and welcome to the Stock Market Report. I'm Dominic Iwiwu. Now, coming off the back of 2 consecutive green sessions in the first week of May, the all-share index started this week shedding some numbers amid bargain hunting and profit-taking. The local bourse closed in the red, losing 0.89% to close at 98,703 points with a market capitalization of 55.82 trillion naira. But before this negative close, the all-share index had regained the 100,000 level at intraday, but that was quickly lost thanks to Airtel Africa, which shed a massive 220 naira in today's trading to close at 1,980 naira. A quick look at the counters. The banking sector gained 2.56% to close in the green, all thanks to First Bank Holdings and Access Bank, while the consumer goods also reflected on the positive side to close at 0.58%, thanks to Dangote Sugar and Flour Mills, while the oil and gas sector remains unchanged. Literally, the day ended bearish.
And that's it from me on Business News. Back to Anne with the rest of the news at 10.
Thank you, Ladi. Hamas claims to have approved a ceasefire deal for Gaza proposed by Qatari and Egyptian mediators. It's still not known exactly what the group has agreed to and whether Israel will give its backing to this plan. But the announcement comes as Israel earlier today asked tens of thousands of Palestinians to leave eastern Rafah ahead of a planned limited military operation there. Here's Simon Puse with other international news and around the world in 5.
Good evening and welcome to the channel's studios here in London with your international news around the world in 5. Israel's military says it has begun ordering Palestinians to leave parts of eastern Rafah ahead of what it calls a limited operation in the southern Gazan city. About 100,000 people are being directed to head to an expanded humanitarian area in Khan Yunis and Al-Mawazi. It's after 7 months of war. Israel says it must take Rafah to defeat Hamas. But the UN and US warn that an assault on the city, where more than 1 million displaced Palestinians are sheltering, could have catastrophic consequences.
Absolutely devastating. You have families in Rafah. Their coping capacity has been smashed. This is 6 months of enduring this war, moving many times, probably having lost a home already. But geographically, logistically, no, you still can't. A lot of families will not be able to move to the north if they'd hoped to. Khan Yunis is impossible. That's another city bordering Rafah. That is rubble, not a little bit, but street after street of rubble. So they'll be pushed into this area called Mawasi, which is a beach area. It's sand. It has next to no sanitation or hygiene. It's getting hot right now in Gaza. It's raining today, but it's getting hot. So they'll be intense side by side, 5 or 6 times the population density of New York City, but all on the ground, not a high rise to be seen, with no hospital care.
A judge has found that Donald Trump violated his gag order for a 10th time and says the series of $1,000 fines may not be enough and threatened to put Trump in jail. Jurors have so far heard from a series of characters who orbited around Trump during his 2016 presidential campaign. This historic New York trial revolves around a 2016 hush money payment Trump made to the adult star Stormy Daniels. Chinese President Xi Jinping has hailed new vistas in China's relationship with France on his first trip to Europe in 5 years, one that feels much like a charm offensive. Mr. Xi will be looking to avert the trade war that is looming with Brussels, driven by fears of cheap Chinese electric vehicles entering the European market. The West also accuses China of helping Vladimir Putin wage war in Ukraine by supplying technology and equipment for the Russian military. Both issues echo Washington's words of warning to him in recent weeks, but it is not what Mr. Xi wants his own people, or indeed those in France, to hear. Chad is set to become the first of Africa's current junta-led states to move to democratic rule with Monday's presidential vote. It will end a 3-year transition imposed after the sudden death of long-serving leader Idris Deby while fighting rebels. But as his son and successor, General Mahamat Deby, is one of the favourites to win, there is some scepticism about whether this will bring about change. Prime Minister Sukes Masra is among his 9 challengers and is seen as his biggest rival. The SNP has named John Swinney as its new leader to replace Humza Yousaf in Scotland. It's after veteran SNP activist Graham McCormick decided not to proceed with his bid, saying he would instead back Mr. Swinney. This came after a lengthy and fruitful conversation with Mr. Swinney, he said, in which Mr. McCormick said they had agreed the challenges which the SNP, the government and the people faced.
Today is the beginning of a new chapter in our party's history. A chapter that will be about coming together, uniting and dedicating ourselves to the service of Scotland.
French President Emmanuel Macron has hailed the 30th anniversary of the completion of the Channel Tunnel linking the UK to France. Trains run through the tunnel, allowing swift and easy access to mainland Europe from London. Mr. Macron said in a tweet, 30 years ago, the Channel Tunnel finally linked the United Kingdom and France. This feat brought people closer together, gave new impetus to our trade, and confirmed the strength of our political relationship. And dashcam footage from a parked car has emerged of the moment a tornado destroyed a building in Lincoln in Nebraska in the United States. According to local media, there were dozens of workers still inside the industrial parts complex when the extreme weather event struck. But amazingly, all survived. And that's your international news around the world in 5. Now back to the channel's studios in Lagos.
Well, before we go to sports, the latest on the ceasefire deal from Gaza, we know now that Israel has said that the terms of the ceasefire deal Hamas accepted earlier today remain far from meeting its demands and warned that its military operations in Rafah will continue even as it sent negotiators to talk to mediators. So we know currently that Israel has rejected that ceasefire deal by Hamas. Let's delve into the world of sports now with Chris Illams.
Thank you and welcome to Sports News. Remo Stars came from a goal down to beat Rivers United 2-1 in a rescheduled Nigeria Premier Football League clash and move within a point of leaders Rangers International earlier today. The Pride of Rivers took the lead through Andy Okwe in the 19th minute via penalty. The Sky Blue Stars had Aruna got the equalizer in the 68th minute of the second half. Togolese forward Frank Mawena got the winner in the 83rd minute. The victory sees Remos cut the gap on Rangers to just a single point, having now completed their game in hand, cranking up the pressure on the title race. West Ham manager David Moyes will leave by mutual consent when his contract expires at the end of the season. The announcement of Moyes' impending exit came just a day after the Hammers suffered an embarrassing 5-0 loss to London rivals Chelsea. There are reports that former Wolves boss Julian Lopetegui have had an agreement in principle to take over as head coach. Manchester United are at risk of failing to qualify for Europe next season after a dismal 4-0 thrashing at Crystal Palace left the Red Devils 8th in the Premier League. Michael Olise scored twice either side of the goals from the informed Jean-Philippe Mateta and Tyrick Mitchell as the Eagles' resurgence since the appointment of Oliver Glasner as manager continues. Defeat leaves United in 8th spot outside of the European places with 3 games remaining and a daunting match against Arsenal to come on Sunday. Palace stays 14th but now have 43 points. That's it on sport. It's back to you, Anne.
Thank you, Chris. And the main news again. Governor Siminalayi Fubara today blew hot over his face-off with Rivers State lawmakers as he said that they are not members of the State Assembly. Meanwhile, the lawmakers have vetoed the governor on yet another bill. The federal government has reacted to speculation over the possible sighting of U.S. forces in Nigeria. The Minister of Information and National Orientation, Mohammed Idris, said the rumor is aimed at creating disaffection against the government. And Hamas also today, Israel said the terms of a ceasefire deal Hamas accepted on Monday remained and far from meeting its demand, as warning its military operations in Rafah will continue even as it sent negotiators to talk to mediators. That's the news at 10 tonight. Thank you for watching. I'm Anne Mwawadu. Good night.